Hanbit, and I'm a pastry chef from Korea. Hi everyone, today I'll show you how to make the best short crust pastry, and plus I'll show you how to use these perforated tart rings to make tart shells that look fantastic. Right, I want to talk a bit about tart rings. Today I'm going to use perforated tart rings, but these are not the classic type. So I'll tell you about the two different types of tart rings. One is the classic type. When I say classic, they are tart rings like these. This is 8 centimeter. This is a larger one. And these are ones with wrinkles. So these are the classic type. And these perforated tart rings, and when you say perforated, that means there are small holes that go around the edges. And these perforated tart rings are becoming ever more popular with bakers. And so why do we use these perforated tart rings? Because they're generally better than the classic ones. When we say perforated, it means there are holes that go around the edge. And so what happens is that hot air is dispersed evenly, which means you don't need to use pie weights. And that contributes to a better workflow and a more efficient workflow. And also, it just looks better. You have these perfect edges that makes them look pretty and absolutely professional. And one other thing, when you're using these perforated tart rings, you have holes on the side, but what happens to the bottom? And so I'm going to use this perforated mat. Now, if you use these perforated mats, then you have hot air being dispersed evenly on the edge, on the sides, and the bottom. First of all, the ingredients. We have room temperature butter, powdered sugar, almond powder, and cornstarch, eggs, and cake flour. There are actually two methods of making short crust pastry, even with the same recipe. The first method is the sablage method, and the other method is the creaming method. The method I'm using today is the creaming method. The sablage method basically uses cold butter and you surround the cold butter with flour. With the creaming method, you use room temperature butter and mix sugar in and cream it. That's why it's called the creaming method. And then you go on from there. The two methods result in short crust pastry with different textures. So even with the same recipe. And so it's a matter of personal preference on which method you use rather than which one's right or which one's wrong. And also the workflow is different. So you decide, but today I'll show you how to use the creaming method because it's the method that I prefer. We start with the room temperature butter, which means it's at about 20 to 22 degrees Celsius. We're going to beat it lightly on low speed. I'm not going to incorporate much air into it. So from beginning till the end, I'm going to beat everything and mix everything on low speed. So I'm going to now sift in the powdered sugar, almond powder, and cornstarch. Now eggs, but I'm not going to add in all the eggs in one go. I'm going to split it in 3. Once all the eggs go in, now we're going to add in the flour. Right, so once it looks like it's coming together as a dough, that's it. I'm going to take it out and knead it. I'm going to scrape the sides of the bowl as there's a bit of powder left and transfer this onto a silicone mat.
Wow!
Well, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to knead it. This process is called fréser in French, and it's basically kneading it and making the dough come together, wholly come together as one. And a lot of the times people use their palms, but I prefer using one of these scrapers so that if you keep kneading it with your hand, and if your hand's hot, then this dough will start melting. Just knead it against the bottom and make sure that you don't see any dry ingredients. You can do it a couple of times, just to make sure. And now this is a well-mixed, homogeneous shortcrust pastry dough, and we're going to roll it out to 2 or 3 millimeter thickness depending on the size of your tart. I'm going to roll my dough out between these 2 parchment papers. And this is so much better than using dusting flour because it saves the hassle of cleaning up your table after using the dusting flour, and also you can reuse your dough as many times as you want because you haven't contaminated it with dusting flour. So in order to roll them out to 2 or 3 millimeter thickness depending on the size of your tart, I'm going to use these bars, these steel bars, which are amazing. They're so useful. This one's 2 millimeters thick and this one is 3 millimeters thick. And using these bars will keep the thickness of your dough consistent. If your dough starts going over the boundary and overshooting, then you can cut it out and glue it to somewhere else. So this is a shortcrust pastry dough of 3 millimeter thickness. So I'm going to use this when making a 16 centimeter diameter tart. I'm first going to take out a circle and also cut out a strip. We can reuse this because it's clean and it's not contaminated by dusting flour. So that's the bottom done. Right, a quick math exercise. If we're making a tart shell of a 16 centimeter diameter like this one, then how long should the strip be? Because the strip goes around the circle, so it's the circumference. And if the diameter is 16 centimeters, then because pi is approximately 3.14, that means the strip should be approximately 50 centimeters. However, 50 centimeters is extremely long, so I'm going to cut it into 2. So I'll have 2 strips and add it to make 50 centimeters. Just be careful, just work fast because this shortcrust pastry, this dough, melts very quickly, and if it melts a bit too much, then it becomes very difficult to line the inside of your tart ring. Now I can line the inside of my tart ring. I'm now going to work on the strip and line the inside of my tart ring. I have these 2 strips here. The first strips are too cold. They might snap when you're trying to line it inside your tart ring. So if that's the case, then just warm it up with your hand and they'll become soft. Line it inside. Make sure that it is fairly tight. And this strip is a bit long, so I'm going to cut it. Work on one side first and then work on the other side. Just press it down gently and glue it together. Make sure it's tight. And now I'm going to cut out the excess with my knife. So that's done, all done. And now I'm going to put this in the freezer, and when it's super cold, I'm going to put it in the oven and bake it. Have you clicked like and subscribe? So this is shortcrust pastry of 2 millimeter thickness, and I'm going to use it to make 8 centimeter diameter tarts. I'm going to work on lining the inside of my tart ring with the strips. If the strips are too cold, they might snap, so just warm it up with your hands. Make sure it's tight. So that's done. I'm going to put this in the freezer and let it freeze and then put it in the oven. Right, so the tart shells have been baked and I've let them to cool down completely. They look absolutely fantastic. So this one is 16 centimeters. This one is 8 centimeters in diameter. So we'll look at this one first. It looks fantastic. So look at this. Look at how beautiful and professional it looks. And now the 8 centimeter diameter tart shells. These also look good. Look how professional that looks. Fantastic. They look so good. So that was the video on how to make a perfect tart shell. Hope the video was useful and helpful. It's important to get a nice looking tart shell to make a nice tart. So until next time, happy baking and thank you very much. 감사합니다.
You blow my mind. I don't know if you know yet.